With the 2021-22 NBA regular season winding down, teams are using this final sprint to either get better lottery odds, make a final push for the play-in tournament, or just to solidify their seeding for the postseason. With so little games left to play, we're starting to get a clearer picture of which NBA teams will be trying to contend for NBA title come June. At the time I'm recording this video, only 4 teams have booked their spots for extra games so far, and they are the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, the Miami Heat, and the Memphis Grizzlies. While the final team that I mentioned might not be too surprising to some of you out there, to me it's a huge shock, as I was not really high on the Memphis Grizzlies coming into this season. And with all that being said, here's how the Memphis Grizzlies have exceeded and surpassed all expectations this season and have become true title contenders. Really quickly before we get into everything, guys, as always, please remember to give this video a like, share with anybody you want to, and subscribe to my channel. I'll greatly appreciate any support you're willing to give. And also, if you're feeling up to it, make sure to give me a follow on Instagram and TikTok at SportsButCasually. Now, let's get into the video. So yeah, like I said before, I wasn't too high on the Grizzlies coming into this season. And that is a big understatement. And now for the Western Conference, I have the Memphis Grizzlies missing the play-ins and being a lottery team this season. I think the Grizzlies will be a lottery team. Oof. I think it's safe to say that those takes of mine age like cheese and not fine wine. But hey, come on, don't laugh at me. I'm serious. Don't you dare. Stop it. That is very mean. At least let me explain my points and why I thought they would be bad. Just give me a chance. Now let's start with their off-season, and it was truly underwhelming. I mean, it was very busy, but underwhelming nonetheless. You know, they just made a lot of moves, but to me at the time, all those moves didn't make their team any better. In fact, I thought it made them a lot worse. Firstly, I didn't like them trading away Travis Kelce. I mean Jonas Valenciunas to the New Orleans Pelicans. Valenciunas was easily the Grizzlies' second best player last season, and on some nights even their best player. He was coming off a career year with them, he was still young and could have grown and developed with this young core. Now don't get me wrong, there were still positives that came from this move. You know, Valenciunas was set to be a free agent soon, and maybe they just didn't want to pay him. They also essentially moved up to the 10th overall pick to snag Zaire Williams, and they also got a first round pick from the Lakers in 2022. Although it is looking like that pick might not convey this season. But they still had to take on the bad contracts of Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams. And for a team that moved the best player, I found that the compensation that they received was not nearly enough. Another trade I didn't like was them trading Grayson Allen to the Bucks for essentially 2 future second round picks. But hey, you know, I get it. Allen was set to be a free agent, and maybe it was like Valenciunas. Maybe they just didn't want to pay him. And also, future draft assets are, you know, always nice. However, Allen, although a bit controversial, was a key role player for them last season and an absolute sniper. As we all know, threes are very important in the modern NBA game, and I just thought the Grizzlies would have valued him more, especially if they wanted to improve on their three-point shooting from last season. Those moves were just the beginning of all the transactions made by the organization. But for the sake of time, I'll sum them all up. I mean, all the important ones anyway. They moved Eric Bledsoe to the Clippers in exchange for Pat Bev and Rondo. And then they waived the latter. As for the former, he was moved to the Timberwolves in exchange for Jared Culver and Juancho Hernan-Gomez. Hernan-Gomez was then traded to the Celtics for essentially a future second-round pick and a trade exception. He would then go on to be traded twice before the trade deadline, thus making him the modern-day Trevor Ariza. After all the dust was settled, this was their opening day roster. Doesn't exactly inspire confidence, you know? Only 3 of their players had 5 or more years experience in the league and had other playoff experience besides their 5-game series versus the Jazz last season. Now, they still had Morant, which does help things. The 2019 Rookie of the Year came into this season fresh from averaging 38 points per game in the postseason, and he was still one of the best young guards in the league, which is no small feat. However, the leap he would need to take for this team to be competent, let alone competitive, would have had to been astronomical. Not only him, his entire roster needed to improve. Triple J needed to be healthy this season. After an injury-riddled third-year campaign, only saw him play 11 games. Brooks is still a streaky shooter. Anderson never struck me as anything more than a role player. Not to mention their sophomores and even their rookies would have had to been a big part of their rotation this season. That's not even talking about the real lack of veteran presence and three-point shooting on this team. They were putting a lot of faith in their young guys to develop and improve. And as we all know, player development is anything but linear. So it was a big gamble. But to their credit, Memphis has done a great job recently drafting and developing their young guys. And ever since head coach Taylor Jenkins took over reins, the Memphis Grizzlies have always been competitive. Still, those positives weren't enough to quell my doubts and lack of confidence in this team heading into this season, which is why I thought they would be bad. And as you can see, they've been anything but bad this season. That's because the Memphis Grizzlies have not only exceeded my expectations, but everybody else's expectations as well, winning 50 or more games for the 5th time in franchise history and for the first time since the grit and grind era in the early 2010s. Their electric, fast-paced, aggressive style of offensive play is balanced well by a physically imposing defense that will make even Zebo and the Grindfather proud. And it's only fitting that it's their two young franchise cornerstones that are leading the way on each end. On offense, we have Ja Morant, obviously. Now, admittedly, I'm not his biggest fan. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate him, I just like some players more than him, which is fine. But I always like to give credit where credit is due. And with his performance this season, Ja deserves all of his flowers. He's having a career year, averaging career highs in almost every single statistical category. And not to mention, he's also top 10 in the league's leading scorers. His constantly attacking, gung-ho style of play makes him an absolute menace when he's going against the giants and trees in the paint. He's actually leading the league in points in the paint and is the only guard in the top 10 in that category. His MVP Derrick Rose-like season is truly remarkable. And luckily, fans and media alike noticed it early enough, which got him named to his first ever All-Star game as a starter no less. With that, he became the 4th Grizzly player ever to be named to the All-Star game and the first ever since Marc Gasol back in 2016-17. And even joins him as the only Grizzlies players to ever go to the All-Star game as a starter. Now let's talk about the other guy who's holding down the fort on the defensive side of the ball. Jaron Jackson Jr. As I mentioned before, he only played in 11 games last season, but that did not deter the front office from offering him a 4-year, $105 million rookie extension. He's one of the best shot blockers we have in the NBA, and he's even leading the league in blocks per game. But it's not just his shot blocking ability, although that's fantastic. He is the quarterback for one of the best defenses in the entire league right now. He's basically playing that Draymond Green type of role on the Memphis Grizzlies. He's always had the length, athleticism, and defensive IQ to be one of the best defenders in the entire league. And it's good to see that his stellar performance this season hasn't gone unnoticed, as he's one of the favorites to end up winning the Defensive Player of the Year award this season. Now, you might be thinking that because he's having an All-NBA type of season, that Ja Morant would be the main reason why the Memphis Grizzlies would be second in the West. And I don't blame you for thinking that. But you see, the thing is, Ja has only played in 56 games this season. And in the games he hasn't played, the Grizzlies own a record of 19-2. Bro, what? That just goes to show you how fantastic this roster is, outside of Ja, and even outside of Triple J. First, let's talk about Desmond Bain. This marksman made an absolutely ginormous leap this season and is even the second leading scorer on the team, all while shooting over 40% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. And most importantly, he's only a sophomore. Bro, just what an absolute steal and what a stud. Big man Steven Adams has revitalized his career with the Memphis Grizzlies. He's still providing his rebounding and elite screen setting, and he's also showing off his playmaking chops. He's actually third on the team in assists per game, which I didn't see coming, and I know you didn't see coming. And despite Dillon Brooks only playing 27 games this season, the rest of his teammates truly stepped up. It also doesn't hurt that the Memphis Grizzlies have one of the best bench units in the entire league. Guards Tyus, Jones and Melton provide great scoring from both 3 and the mid-range to go along with their expert playmaking and active hands. They are truly deadly 1-2 punch coming off the bench. The veteran, if you could even call him that, Kyle Anderson is still making solid contributions to this team, despite losing his starting spot this season. Speaking of guys making solid contributions, Brandon Clark is still his consistent self. He's posting his 3rd season in a row with double-digit points, grabbing boards, playing some defense, and is a nice alley-oop threat. They're even getting good stuff from John Concha.
Who?
He's an undrafted player that's been on their roster since the 2019-20 season. Now he's developed into a solid role player and a good shooter. Just another testament to the player development done by the Memphis Grizzlies staff. Just an excellent job all around. That's not even mentioning their rookies like Zaire Williams and Santi Aldama, or their other sophomores like Killian Tilly and Xavier Tillman Sr., who have all made solid contributions towards the success of this team. Everybody on this team has done their part into making this season one of the best in franchise histories. And as you can clearly see, this team is much more than just Ja Morant. It's a well-oiled machine that on one end can get away with not shooting a lot of 3-pointers because they score so easily off turnovers and get extra possessions with their offensive rebounding, not to mention they dominate the paint. And on the other end, they create pure havoc, which either results in turnovers or scoreless possessions due to their elite rebounding ability. They're a team that is solid on their perimeter defense and are usually well aware of their defensive assignments. To summarize, the Grizzlies are a team that plays well on both ends. They have an All-Star and an All-NBA player on their roster. So do they have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? They have a deep supporting cast that is well coached by a Coach of the Year candidate as well. So all in all, that's a recipe for a team that is poised to make a deep playoff run. Granted, the playoffs are totally unpredictable, as we're all well aware. And if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I'm still not that confident in the Grizzlies heading into the playoffs. Am I confident that they could win a playoff series? Absolutely. But do I see them in the Western Conference Finals or even the NBA Finals? I'm going to have to say no. However, you may disagree with my opinion, and that's totally fine. But that should not take away from the point of this video. The Memphis Grizzlies came into this season expected to be middle of the road, just average. And now with the playoffs a week and change away from starting, they have the second best record in the entire league. So no matter what happens this postseason, the 2021-22 season has been an absolute success for Memphis, and they should look back at it fondly and be proud of their performance. It just goes to show you that expectations should not always be taken as reality. Yo, what's going on everybody? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all really enjoyed. I do apologize for, I'm not sticking to the once a week schedule. Shit's just happening and I can't do that at the moment. I'm going to try to get videos out whenever I can. But just know they might be like a 2 weeks apart kind of thing. Just until, things start to quiet down on my end. But still, you guys, I hope you all really enjoyed. Please remember to drop a like on the video and subscribe to my channel. I'll greatly appreciate it. And as always, I shall see you for my next video. whenever that might be. So you guys take care and later.